Hi, my name is Pat, and this is my channel, Book Chat with Pat, and I'm glad that you're here. This past week, I saw a really fun video that was created by my friend Corinne at the channel Corinne H. Smith. And what she did was she created a video about the 11 or 12 fictional female characters that she wishes were real. Characters that she wishes she could meet. Now, Corinne is a former librarian and a very avid reader. And in this video, she not only talked about 11 or 12 female characters that she wishes she could meet, but she also invited a couple of other booktubers to create a video with their list of female characters that they wish that they could meet. And she invited Gina at Gina Stanier Books. She invited Hannah at Hannah's Books. She invited Kelly at Books I'm Not Reading. And she invited me to create videos with our choices. So I just thought this was a really fun idea, and I started thinking immediately about which female characters I would like to meet, and I've put together my own list. And then at the end of this, I'm going to invite anybody to participate if you'd like to give your list. And Corinne said this is not a tag, but I am going to just list some people and invite you to participate and come up with your list of fictional female characters that you would like to meet. So in Corinne's video, she said that she was quite sure of one of my choices. So I don't want to disappoint. One of my choices would definitely be Scout Finch from Harper Lee's novel To Kill a Mockingbird. And I talk about this novel enough that I guess that does make sense. Now, Scout Finch is that's the nickname for Jean Louise Finch, and she is actually the narrator of this story. She's an adult looking back on her childhood, and specifically on the events that occurred in 1 year in her childhood with her older brother Jem and a next door neighbor who comes to visit during the summer. So I definitely would love to be able to sit down and talk to Scout Finch about her childhood experiences. Now, another female character that I wish were real is from another book that I talk about a great deal. J.D. Salinger's novel, The Catcher in the Rye, is certainly a book that I have featured many times on the channel. And usually when I'm talking about this novel, I'm talking about the narrator, Holden Caulfield, who is a 17-year-old boy when he's telling the story. But that's not the character that I'm talking about for this video. One of Holden Caulfield's favorite people in the whole world is his little sister, Phoebe Caulfield. And she is a character that I wish could be real. She's a character I would love to be able to meet and talk to. Phoebe Caulfield is, many years younger. She's a little kid in elementary school in the novel. But she's the wise child. She is, the little sister, the only child home with Holden's parents who are suffering horribly because they've lost another child. Holden's younger brother, Allie, has died in recent years. Holden has been sent away to school. and he's not doing very well. And his older brother is off living in Hollywood, and he's a writer, but Holden's afraid that he's selling himself out. And his inspiration in a lot of the novel is his little sister Phoebe, and he wants to. He's in he's motivated by a desire to save little children from being corrupted by the adult world. And Phoebe is the person that he's thinking about most of the time when he thinks about saving children from just from the pains of growing up. And it's actually his meeting up with his little sister Phoebe that ultimately gets Holden to decide to do the right thing, which is to stop running away, and to go home to his parents and get the help that he needs. So he's telling the story from a hospital. He's been hospitalized. He's in a mental hospital when he's narrating the story. But it's his little sister Phoebe who gets that to happen, who is able to get him to realize that he has to go home. And then he can get the help that he needs. So I would love to be able to talk to this little wise child, Phoebe. Okay. Another child character that I would love to meet is the character of Lily in Susie Boyt's novel Loved and Missed. Lily is the granddaughter of Ruth, the main character in this novel. And Ruth takes in her granddaughter, Lily, because Ruth's daughter, Eleanor, is just not functioning. She's a drug addict, and she's very, very self-destructive, and she's in a destructive relationship. And Ruth, the main character of the novel, becomes really the custodial parent for her granddaughter, Lily. Lily is another wise child, and she is this image to me of extraordinary resilience. And I loved all of the characters in this book, but I have a very special place in my heart for the character of Lily. So she's someone that I would like to meet. I love murder mysteries, and I was, for quite a while, I was on a sort of a tear reading Agatha Christie novels, in particular her Miss Marple novels. And I think Miss Marple, who is, an older woman, and just a very beloved detective and investigator, sort of an amateur detective. But I would just love to be able to sit down and talk with Miss Marple. Another favorite investigator, detective of mine is Vera Stanhope from Ann Cleeves' series, her Vera Stanhope novels. Now, there has also been a TV show made about Vera, and I've only seen, I think, like one episode. I'm not much of a TV watcher, but I probably would love it. I probably would love the Vera series, because I certainly love the Vera Stanhope mystery novels. And then another detective that I've talked about on a couple of occasions on the channel is the detective created by Amanda Cross in her Kate Fansler mysteries. So I just brought a couple of them down. I think there are 18 altogether. And I've talked about Kate Fansler in other in other videos. I in fact did a whole video on Amanda Cross, who is, actually the pen name for the Columbia University English professor Carolyn Heilbrunn. She wrote her scholarly writing under the name Carolyn Heilbrunn, and she wrote her mysteries under the name Amanda Cross. And she did so because she believed that she would never get tenure at Columbia if the all-male department knew that she was also writing murder mysteries. And she was probably right. At the time, I think she was the first woman to get tenure, certainly in the English department at Columbia. I don't know if she was the first ever at Columbia. And she created this fictional character, Kate Fansler, who is an English professor. We're never told where she teaches. We're just told that it's a very prestigious university in New York City. So it's clearly modeled after Columbia University. And Kate ends up getting herself involved in all of these cases, and she ends up solving crimes. She's not actually a detective. She's an English professor, but she does solve a lot of mysteries, and all of the mysteries have some very strong literary bent to them. So those would be three solvers of crime that I would love to meet: Vera Stanhope, Miss Marple, and Kate Fansler. In a couple of classics, I've frequently talked about my love of Pride and Prejudice. This is my favorite Jane Austen novel. It's probably the one I've read the most, because it's one that I used to teach. There are 5 Bennet daughters in this novel, and Mrs. Bennet, their mother, is mostly preoccupied with trying to get them married off. I probably would like to meet all of the Bennets, but especially Elizabeth Bennet. She is my favorite character. Another classic, Kate Chopin's The Awakening. I would love to meet the main character in this novel, Edna Pontellier. She is a woman who is struggling with her identity. She is a wife and a mother. She aspires to be an artist, but she can't seem to find a way to balance all of the things that she wants to do. This is like the turn of the century, the turn of the 20th, the 19th into the 20th century. The book was published in 1899. And she's a troubled character. She makes some decisions that I think are not good for her. They're probably not good for her family, but they're especially not good for her. But I would love to, I'd love to be able to meet her and talk with her, and talk about how this book ends too. I'd like to be able to talk with her about that. Another novel that I used to love to teach is from the Harlem Renaissance, and this is Zora Neale Hurston's novel, Their Eyes Were Watching God. I would love to meet the main character in this novel, Janie Crawford. This is very much the story of Janie's efforts to get agency in her own life. Early in her life, what she's going to do and be in life is very much dictated by other people. She's forced into an early marriage by her grandmother, who thinks she's doing the right thing for her. She thinks that she's providing her daughter with security and stability, that she never had, that her grandmother, who is a former enslaved person, that she didn't have in her life. So she thinks she's doing the right thing by Janie, but it's not the right thing, and it's a bad marriage. and then Janie ends up in another marriage, and that looks like it's going to be a good marriage, and it isn't. And she eventually meets a third person, and that does turn out to be the true love of her life. And she does have a brief period of time of just, great love and understanding in her life. But the purpose of the whole story, I think, is that she needs to get agency in her own life. And so the novel kind of begins at the end of her story, where she's come back home after years and years of trial and tribulation, and now she's come back home, and she's finally gained the right to tell her own story, to sit on the porch and talk to whomever she decides to talk to and tell her own story that isn't going to be dictated by or written by anybody else. So she's also a character of great resilience, and she's one I wish were real, and I wish I could sit down. I wish I could sit on her porch with her and hear her story. Okay. Another character that I just fell in love with is the grandmother, Nana, in The Queen of Dirt Island by Donal Ryan. This was a book that I first read over a year ago when I was judging the BookTube prize. This was, I think I read this in maybe the second round. And it's a novel about 4 generations of women in an Irish family. But the character of the grandmother was one that I just fell in love with from the first page where I met her. She's very much the matriarch of the family. She does not suffer fools gladly. She clearly reminded me of people in my own family. But I adored her, and she's one that I feel like I do know, actually, but I wish that I could meet her in person and have a conversation with her. Another character that I really loved was Sam Montgomery in T. Kingfisher's novel A House with Good Bones. Sam Montgomery goes home to visit. She thinks she's going home to visit her mother in their North Carolina home, a home that was actually owned by her grandmother, who's a kind of scary character. And Sam, thinks she's just going home for a vacation with her mother, and as soon as she gets there, she knows that something is very wrong. Something's very wrong with her mother. Something is very wrong in the house. And Sam goes about finding out what has happened to her mother, what has happened to this house. This is probably the first horror novel that I read in my first months on BookTube when I wanted to get involved in horror mayhem, and MJ recommended it to me as what she described as cozy horror, and I fell in love with the book. I loved the character of Sam Montgomery. She's smart, and she's really, really funny, and she solves some very creepy mysteries in this novel as well. So I feel like this book kind of opened doors for me, and so I would love to be able to chat with Sam Montgomery. And then the last character, at least for now, that I wish I could meet is Rosemary Harper in Becky Chambers' The Long Way to a Small, Angry Planet. And this is the first in the Wayfarer series. Rosemary Harper is kind of described as a restless spirit, and in the course of the novel, she goes into space and she finds a new family among the other people and sort of characters and creatures on this spaceship. So it was very much a novel about found family, which is sort of an idea that's near and dear to my heart. And I think this book was also really important to me because, as you know, I am relatively new to science fiction. I've only been reading around in the science fiction genre for, a little more than 2 years, maybe 3 years, almost 3 years. But Becky Chambers was one of the first female science fiction writers that I discovered, and this was the first book of hers that I read. So it holds a very, very special place in my heart. I was mostly reading classic science fiction when I got started, and I would soon thereafter discover Ursula K. Le Guin, and she became very important to me also. But Becky Chambers, who is a contemporary writer, she was really the first that just really resonated with me in a very deep way, and it was her character Rosemary Harper that kind of opened that door for me. So she's a character I'd like to sit down and talk with as well. So those are, I'm not exactly sure how many that is. I think it's 12. The female characters that I wish were real, that I wish I could have a conversation with at the very least. If this is appealing to you, if this sounds like something that you would like to do, I hope that you'll give this a try too. And just let me know in your notes that you've done it, and I'll come and watch your video and let Corinne know as well. But I am going to list a bunch of my friends in the notes below who I think might also have some interesting female characters that they would like to meet if it were ever to be possible. So, as always, I thank you for watching. I hope that you're doing well. I'll speak with you again soon. Take care.